the Ellen situation.
Yeah.
You know, people found out that Ellen was mean, and all these people came out and said, Ellen's actually a bitch. And they were like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And she lost everything. She fell apart, disappeared, because people found out that this character that she was portraying in a half an hour on a television show is not really who she was. My buddy Greg, who was one of her writers, was like, she's a piece of shit. And he was like, she's a monster.
All these staffers started to come out, not for nothing, but I know a guy, I know him very well, whose sister worked for her, who said you were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person.
Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly are joining forces to expose Ellen DeGeneres like never before. The smile that once lit up daytime television is now being peeled back, and what's underneath is anything but bright. What secrets is Ellen hiding behind that polished grin? Is it all just harmless dancing and happy slogans, or is there something way darker buried beneath the glitter? Spoiler alert, it's not just messy. It's awkward, shocking, and wildly uncomfortable. If you thought daytime TV was a snooze fest, think again, because this truth bomb is bursting at the seams. This isn't just spilled tea, it's a tidal wave, and it's hitting Ellen like a storm she never saw coming. Her once flawless image is now tangled in headlines, confessions, and chaos. Rogan didn't hold back, comparing Ellen's backstage environment to something straight out of Abu Ghraib. That's how intense and oppressive the behind-the-scenes culture had become: controlled, cold, and cruel. Everything started to unravel after Ellen's awkward interview with Dakota Johnson.
I have a question for you on this. This is perfect for you, because I'm seeing this week that there is an attempted comeback by somebody who did not cross one of those fateful lines of the misstepping on their sacred cows of gender or race or sexuality.
Yeah.
But she was said to be a nasty biatch, and that's Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah.
So her show got canceled after she had this testy exchange with Dakota Johnson, where something happened where Dakota said, oh, I had this birthday party. And Ellen said, well, why didn't you invite me? You didn't invite me. And she said, like, no, I did invite you, Ellen. That's not what happened. And Ellen had blown her off and then tried to play the victim on the set with her. Anyway, it led to article after article of people being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person. And
Ellen joked, why wasn't I invited to your party? But Dakota snapped right back, actually, Ellen, I did invite you. And the whole world saw the mask crack live on air. That clip went viral like wildfire. It was the moment many realized. Maybe Ellen wasn't the beacon of kindness we all thought she was. Rogan called it out, with no hesitation. She doesn't seem nice, he said flatly. It looks forced. It feels like an act. And the internet agreed with him, loudly. Then came the comparison that sent shockwaves. She's running that place like it's Abu Ghraib, Rogan joked, drawing attention to the fear and control behind the scenes of her once-beloved show. It wasn't just a joke. It was a mirror held up to a very dark reflection. Former employees flooded online forums, saying Ellen was cold, detached, and downright cruel behind the camera. Megyn Kelly kept digging, and what she found was disturbing. Lawsuits, complaints, confidential HR reports, all pointing to a workplace that felt more like a war zone than a happy set. Ellen's slogan had always been, be kind. But Kelly made it clear that those words were just branding, a cover for something much colder and more calculated. There's no kindness in fear, Megyn declared. There's no compassion in silence. And in that moment, Ellen's empire of niceness started to look more like a house of cards. Behind the scenes, everything was different from what the cameras showed. No dancing, no joy, just tense silence and nervous glances in the hallway.
Have they made progress with the strike?
They're picketing right now, so I think it's the early stages. I would think it might take a little bit with this one.
When someone crosses the writer strike, that's some dirty shit. They cross the picket line.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody doing that yet.
I think Ellen did. I had a buddy of mine who was writing on Ellen. Everybody kind of knows now what she's really all about. And that's another one of those. Like, I'm so nice and I'm so sweet. Being behind the scenes.
One insider finally spoke up. You were told not to speak to her unless she spoke to you first. How does that sound like kindness to anyone? After her fall from grace, Ellen is now staging a comeback with a Netflix special and trying to rewrite the story by playing the victim. She's now saying, I was run out of Hollywood. But is that the truth? Megyn Kelly fired back with precision. Run out? She asked. She left with hundreds of millions in the bank. That's not cancellation. That's a luxury exit. And people couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. As Ellen prepares to return to the spotlight, the backlash is heating up again. And this time, it's not going away quietly. People aren't just questioning her. They're questioning the entire illusion they once cheered for. Joe Rogan wasn't interested in empty outrage. He wanted answers. He kept pushing the question, how can someone make millions selling kindness while treating their staff like they're disposable? And no one had a good answer. He described it as a performance gone stale, a carefully rehearsed act that finally ran out of stage. When you hear the same story from dozens of people, it's not a coincidence, he added, shaking his head. And if that wasn't enough, Rogan revealed he knew someone who worked directly on The Ellen Show and told him, you were never to look her in the eye, not even by accident. Can you imagine being terrified to even glance at your boss? Ellen's charm had become her shield, but now that shield was cracking under the weight of the truth. And Rogan wasn't done pulling at the threads. He reminded his audience that no amount of good PR could erase what people went through. This wasn't just bad management, it was emotional warfare, he exclaimed, his voice rising. And while Rogan ripped through the fake smiles, Megyn Kelly turned up the heat on the empire itself.
All these staffers started to come out, not for nothing, but I know a guy, I know him very well, whose sister worked for her, who said, you were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show. If you saw her, this is not a nice person. So she eventually got canceled, but now she's coming back. She's got a Netflix special. That's the right response.
Yeah.
She's got a Netflix special. And here's the capper. On the promo, and apparently there's now articles out about from people who have seen the preview. She plays the victim.
She investigated not just the woman, but the system that let it all happen in the first place. She showed how producers ignored complaints, how networks brushed off concerns, and how ratings took priority over real people. It wasn't just Ellen. It was an entire machine designed to protect her image. But now that image was burning, and Kelly made sure the flames were visible to everyone watching. She exposed the hypocrisy of a woman worth hundreds of millions, crying victim while being celebrated by the media. She says she was run out of Hollywood, Kelly scoffed, yet she's announcing a new Netflix special. How does that make sense? And the hypocrisy hit like a slap. The truth is, Ellen's story isn't just about one person. It's about an entire culture of celebrity branding gone wild. The smiling faces, the choreographed acts of kindness, the public charities, it was all part of the performance. Kelly showed how kindness was no longer a value, it was a marketing strategy, a way to sell books, t-shirts, and ad space while keeping the ugly reality behind locked doors. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. How could someone preach compassion while ignoring the pain of those working right under their nose? Kelly didn't sugarcoat it. She called it out for what it was. She pointed out how the media protected Ellen for years, refusing to question her because she checked the right boxes: celebrity, LGBTQ icon, daytime darling. But now that protection was gone. And that's why this takedown hit so hard. It wasn't fueled by rage, but by facts, consistency, and the undeniable truth coming from people who lived it every day. What made it even more powerful was that Rogan and Kelly weren't teaming up for fame or clout. They were just telling the truth in a world used to spinning fairy tales. Ellen might have danced her way into America's heart, but now she was dancing around the truth, and people were finally catching on.
It's like a beautiful name, Isis.
Ellen's rough. That's a
Ellen
rough
is like
one.
an old.
But it's a rough one now.
It's a rough one now because she was running Abu Ghraib in the back of her show.
It led to article after article of people being like, Ellen's a bitch. Ellen is a nasty person.
The special on Netflix. It's not a comeback. It's a reminder of how power lets people rewrite their own endings while the real victims are left behind. And while Ellen sobs on stage about how tough life has been, those former employees are still living with the scars of what they experienced behind her cameras. As Joe Rogan said, she didn't lose it all. She just lost the illusion. And Megyn Kelly followed with, "You don't get to cry from a mansion and call it exile." The spotlight is still on Ellen, but now it's exposing everything she worked so hard to hide, and audiences aren't falling for the act anymore. Joe Rogan pushed even further, comparing the setup of Ellen's show to a psychological trap. You've got smiling faces on screen, but behind the curtain, people are walking on eggshells, he said, and that contrast stuck with everyone. Rogan agreed, saying that Ellen's brand of staged kindness was part of a bigger problem in celebrity culture. People love a good story, even if it's fake, he said, but eventually the truth always shows up, and now it had. That's when things took a darker turn, with Rogan mentioning that Ellen had once been the only person to interview a key figure from the Las Vegas shooting, Jesus Campos, the security guard who saw the shooter before the massacre. "That's strange," he said. "Why only her? Why that platform?" And people started asking the same question. The way Ellen handled the interview raised even more eyebrows. She skipped emotions and jumped into diagrams and directions like it was a crime scene reenactment rather than a moment of compassion. Viewers didn't just feel confused, they felt deeply uncomfortable.
That should tell you
Uniform,
something.
yeah.
Like, that's an odd look with all those buttons. Like, why do you have so many wrist buttons?
It was given to her in Langley.
The only reason why you have that many wrist buttons if you're looking at clothesline somebody.
Yeah, look at her.
Marking
Look at her.
their neck.
Everyone says she looks so friendly. She looks friendly.
She does look very military.
Yeah, she's a militant woman.
With a very expensive watch.
She
too.
dealt with a lot of discrimination when she came out. It was very sad, but then she joined the CIA.
Her house got broken into while she was at home.
Really?
Yeah. She got a dope place in Montecito.
And so, and they broke in while she was there.
Yeah.
And those people are still being tortured to this day.
Probably.
They're still in an underground jail.
Kelly called it what it was: tone deaf and cold. That moment should have been about empathy, not graphics, she said, and instead it looked like a PR stunt dressed as concern. It wasn't just awkward, it was revealing. And now, looking back, that strange moment feels like a piece of the puzzle everyone missed at the time, a moment that now feels too choreographed to ignore. Ellen's defenders try to shift the conversation. Blaming society or claiming cancel culture went too far. But the people who lived it, the ones who were silenced for years, they're finally being heard. Rogan didn't let that slide either. "This isn't cancel culture, it's consequence culture," he said, pounding the table. "You don't get to treat people like trash and expect a standing ovation forever." Kelly echoed that sentiment, adding that Ellen's story wasn't about a mistake, it was about a pattern. This wasn't one bad day, she said. This was a toxic environment, crafted over years with a smile plastered on top. Now every new statement, every appearance, every interview feels less like a return and more like a desperate performance trying to salvage a brand that's already broken. Rogan nailed it when he said, "This isn't about whether Ellen can tell a joke. It's about whether people can trust her again." And from the sound of it, that trust may never be restored. That line hit like a shockwave because it wasn't just opinion, it was truth, backed by years of silent complicity in the industry. The rules simply weren't applied equally. And now, with her new special, Ellen plays the same role she always has: the misunderstood victim, the lovable outsider, the innocent entertainer caught in a cruel world. But audiences see through it now. The same woman who once shamed a guest for not inviting her to a party is now asking for public sympathy. The irony is staggering, and people aren't laughing anymore. Kelly exposed it perfectly.
This is for me. And she actually has the nerve to say that she was run out of Hollywood. This person
with
and
she with $100 million in her pocket.
450 million, according to Forbes. That's a low estimate.
Yeah.
Because so now she's out there saying, I was run out of Hollywood. She's actually reportedly complaining about how hard it is for women in America with the double standards.
Look at Oprah, how hard it is for her.
Oh, she's got, like 10 houses, Ellen DeGeneres?
Michelle Obama, look how hard it is for women in America. They're hurting.
They're going to let her back in, Rob, because she's a lesbian, she's a leftist, and she didn't hit one of their sacred cows.
Look at it.
Oh, well, you know where that is too, right? The similar image to that, right?
No.
I know Jamie does.
What is it?
It's on the set of a famous talk show that's now not on anymore.
Oh, Ellen? Was that Ellen?
Yeah.
Really?
Just look at the temple and then look at the...
Let me see Ellen's background.
You don't get to hide behind hardship when you were the one making everyone else's life harder. The applause has faded, and the reality is echoing. The silence from other celebrities is deafening. Few have rushed to Ellen's defense, not because they fear backlash, but because they know the stories are real. They've heard them too, and that says more than any statement ever could. When even your closest allies stay quiet, it's not because they're afraid, it's because they believe the people speaking out. The most chilling part? Rogan warned, this isn't an isolated case. How many more kind celebrities are hiding the same dark secrets? He asked, and suddenly the industry began to sweat. This wasn't just Ellen's reckoning. It was a warning shot to every public figure who's built a brand on smiles but led with cruelty behind the scenes. The mask is slipping, and it won't stop with her. Kelly agreed, calling it a turning point in how we view celebrity personas. It's not enough to be likable on camera anymore. You have to live it when the cameras are off. Ellen once inspired millions to dance, to laugh, and to be kind. But now her story is a case study in how easy it is to fake goodness when you're surrounded by handlers, editors, and lighting. Rogan summed it up with a line that left listeners stunned. She was selling kindness like a product, but what she delivered behind the scenes was fear. And that truth hit harder than any punchline. Ellen's downfall isn't just a headline. It's a wake-up call to audiences everywhere to start asking the hard questions. Who are we really supporting? And what's hiding behind the brand? The days of smiling through scandals are over. Audiences are demanding authenticity now, flaws and all, not fake perfection, wrapped in talk show glitter. So while Ellen tries to rebuild her image one stage light at a time, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly have already burned down the set and left nothing but ashes behind. And in those ashes, the truth is finally visible to everyone. The fairy tale is over. For a woman who once danced into America's hearts, Ellen is now learning what happens when the music stops and the truth finally steps forward. Because at the end of the day, kindness isn't about cameras or catchphrases. It's about character when no one's watching. And for Ellen, that test has already been failed. The curtain has been pulled back, and there's no hiding anymore. What's left is a legacy forever changed and a public no longer willing to stay silent. And if anyone still thinks kindness can be faked forever, they haven't seen what happens when truth-tellers like Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly come knocking.